Apes on Tape. Hello, welcome to Apes on Tape Sound Excited podcast. This is episode 12. Thanks for joining us. So today's a special podcast for myself in that we're speaking with Karli Ingersoll, whom with her husband is behind a brand new venue in my hometown of Spokane, Washington. Karli, thanks for making the time. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. I saw a million crazy fall leaf pictures today online from everyone at home, and I was mega jealous for some of that weather right now.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful right now.
Tough to beat, I think, those Eastern Washington fall days.
Yep.
So you guys had Pickwick at NYNE this weekend for the soft opening, but your venue, the Bartlett, is opening up here officially the second weekend of November. It's like, 20 days out now?
Yeah, we have a big grand opening weekend in November, but we actually have a soft opening show on the 25th of this month, so that's coming up really fast.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's weird to watch it every day, the development via Instagram and stuff. But it's cool.
Yeah.
And you guys have some really awesome shows coming up with, like, Cave Singers, Blouse, Typhoon. Like you said, that first weekend's pretty crazy, bringing a lot of talent to Spokane. We'll make sure to post that full calendar on there for people to see later, but yeah, good work.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, Caleb he's been doing all the booking and has had a lot of contacts in the past from another venue he ran in the Tri-Cities, so.
Right, Red Room, was it?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, the Red Room.
Cool. So first off, I think it's very interesting in that you funded the venue with the IndieGoGo campaign, and we see Kickstarters all the time for bands' albums and tours or merch. And, I funded one of those, but it's a much bigger task to get a whole venue, like essentially a small business, funded via that campaign. So maybe you could backtrack a little bit and first give us a window into why you and Caleb first decided you want to launch it with an IndieGoGo and that whole dream of the Bartlett, where that inspiration came from.
Yeah, well, originally we had been in the planning process for about a year and a half, and we were ready to go into signing a lease on a space. But we were kind of still trying to get some capital going for, all of our initial costs for getting open. And part of it was to kind of give us an initial, boost financially, but also we wanted to see kind of what the response would be from the community in, a more practical way. And we also know that those types of campaigns can be really great marketing tools, especially for a new business or a new project, because it gets you out there to a lot of people even before you start. So those were kind of our motivations initially, and we knew that we probably couldn't fund the whole startup with that money, but we wanted to do it to kind of use that as our initial groundwork for kind of developing the rest of the capital we needed.
And in terms of the campaign, I know Kickstarter is all or nothing, but IndieGoGo, they just take a cut if you aren't quite there. Is that how that works? I haven't used it before.
Yeah, we actually initially submitted to Kickstarter because it's more well known, but they don't take startup campaigns for businesses.
Interesting.
At least that's what they say. I mean, you see people that actually somehow work it out to make that happen on there, but they denied our submission, and it ended up working out great because IndieGoGo is awesome, and they basically let you keep any money that you raise, and if you make your goal, they just take a small percentage less of fees. So we didn't make our goal, but we still were able to keep all the money that we brought in.
Which I think makes a lot of sense with as ambitious of a goal as you had, too. I mean, you guys did extremely well in that campaign. I know that you got to think positively and shoot high with a goal like that. But did it surprise you at all? I mean, I can't think of many crowdfunded art-related campaigns that grossed that much.
Yeah, well, especially for Spokane, because the crowdfunding is still pretty new in this area.
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of people didn't even know what it was, as we were asking them to check it out. And so, yeah, we were super hopeful. We wouldn't have done it if we weren't, but we were also kind of in awe of how many people that we didn't know that did it. So, you kind of always assume that your friends will help out, and a lot of ours did, but a huge population of the people that donated were just strangers that loved the idea.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, Like the packaging and the stationery, all the branding were very well done, by the way. I know you do graphic design and
Thanks.
stuff, but I think that brought validity to it all. I mean, it's not just like a CDR with a marquee sharper that says, "Hey, thanks." That it was. I think that communicated pretty clearly what you guys were doing.
Cool. That's good to hear.
Cool. Okay, so I definitely support the Bartlett. Donated to the Indiegogo as soon as I saw it. Told all my friends and family. Put on social media. Did Apes on tape. And I really think it would be excellent. 5 years down the road, if we're celebrating at the Bartlett's anniversary and stuff, and friends from Spokane are coming back, as that's like the go-to spot. I really do hope that. But I'm turning the tables.
Yeah,
here.
we hope so too.
And both sides, cool. But I'm gonna turn the tables and play devil's advocate for a bit and bring up some issues because
Sure.
I had this conversation with dozens of friends in music and art community in Spokane. It's something that I have spent hours and hours thinking about as my hometown. And I know that you've thought about these things, so I'd love to talk to you about them.
Yeah.
Don't take it as me raining on the parade, by the way.
No, not at all. We've dealt with the hard questions. We definitely wouldn't be here if we hadn't already.
Exactly,
kind
and
of-
I know that you've thought this through, and like I said, I've wanted to have this discussion with you because I know that you've
Yeah,
talked
sure.
about that. Okay, cool. So I think first the economics of a venue in Spokane. I wouldn't be the first to say that there's tons of potential. Like it's the second biggest city in Washington, largest between Minneapolis and Seattle, which for bands passing through a 990 is huge. There's 3 universities there, easy access for band. I think there's a lot of things going for it. But however, for whatever reason, like arts and music and venues have historically, I think, had some trouble in Spokane. And then if you go 4 or 5 hours west to Portland or Seattle, it's like people can't believe the difference between the two. And I was talking to Eric Walters of the Globes, and we did an interview for Apes on Tape, but also we've talked about this outside. And he was just saying, there's like no resources from venues to labels to periodicals to infrastructure. It's just hard. It's difficult. And venue-wise, we've seen Big Dipper, Empyrean, Blue Spark, a number of ours closed, and I know like Forbes named it I remember I went home after college and it was like 2002 worst economic outlook on the country, and I was so bummed. But that does affect the disposable income thing. I mean, it correlates. And again, honestly, I'm not trying to be negative, but you probably see my point. It's a tough spot for music.
Yeah.
Did you obviously that crossed your mind, but did you see that just a challenge? Like, hey, this is an opportunity to rewrite the rules and change that. I know you're close with the Empyrean people and stuff, so.
Yeah, so there's a lot. I think there's a lot of angles to that, and I do agree, not just some venues in Spokane have had trouble, but every single venue's had trouble. I mean, there's not a venue that's been open since I started going to shows until now, and I'm not that old, so
Yeah, for sure.
it's but I mean, that's also kind of the culture all over the country. I mean, even in Seattle and Portland, venues close sometimes and reopen and go through changes, and I think the key with Spokane is the dive bar venue is, well, at least for all ages. So it's different talking about a full bar 21 and over venue and then an all ages venue. But kind of the divey vibe for a venue attracts people that don't have very much money. So I think that's kind of part of what we're trying to do is make a place that's a little bit more suited to people that are willing to spend a little bit more money on shows, which is allowing us to get in bands that are a little bit bigger and kind of give us a chance to have a bigger, just a bigger population of people that are paying attention.
Yeah.
So it kind of is like this, I think it's this cycle, and I was, obviously around Empyrean from the beginning and volunteered a lot of time there and played a lot of shows there, and they actually were doing pretty well in their initial location and had really developed well, and they ended up getting kicked out of that one, and it was the new location that I think had a lot to do with why they closed. And so I think they did have something great going, though, is they kind of became a lot of the infrastructure.
Completely.
So, not only were they the venue, but they, we started a music zine to put the word out about shows, and they connected artists and connected the poetry scene and kind of did all those other things that right now, Mootsie's isn't going to do because they're just a bar. So for us, it's kind of taking that model that Empyrean had. That's more of communal and connects a lot of different types of events and a lot of different types of people, but also kind of raise the bar on the level of class. And not that we want to be like discriminatory or anything at all, but it's more like as a business owner, you do want to have a target market, and that's going to like define your success if you can cater to those people and bring them in and have them be your consistent clientele.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a lot of those things, and for us also, we pay attention to different things that are happening nationally with venues. So part of it is not just like being good for Spokane, but being good for like the U.S. as far as venues go. That's been one of our goals, and so like a lot of venues are seeing open up, like the Sinclair, Lincoln Hall, the Doug Fir. They have like multiple different areas that people can patronize other than the venue. So they're bringing in different levels of income, not just at their shows. So that was kind of one of our initial things with the space is we had to be able to have, a separate bar area and a venue.
Yeah.
Because the only way we're not gonna make a ton of money off shows. We're doing that part of it because of the cultural aspect, not necessarily the business aspect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to, be able to bring in some other money. So we're having like a separate bar cafe area that hopefully will kind of bring in business consistently on a separate level from the venue. And then also, another part of our business plan is special events, which can be, another stream of income. So we're kind of hoping like we want to be like quality over quantity and not try to do too many things, but we also know that like we can't survive as a business just booking indie bands. I mean, that is the heart of what we're doing, but we have to make sure we're doing other things to kind of supplement the money that that's bringing in.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear that fleshed out. Like,
yeah, so
I knew you'd talk about that, obviously.
Yeah, and I do think that the whole economic thing is tough too, and I realize that like there's just nothing we can do about that, and that is a huge risk to go into starting a business right now. But we also feel like the culture in Spokane is like it's at a really good moment right now for what we're doing, and we've definitely seen that in the response that we've had leading up to it. So we're just hopeful that things continue to get better.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I was operating on a lot of generalizations when I said earlier too. Like, we both know a lot of cool stuff that's going on, cool people, cool projects, a lot of stuff that are going on. But it's like a cultural deal where I think a good example is I heard advertising professionals explaining that when they want to do a sample introduction for a product, they go to Spokane as the most conservative market to test out and that to like, see how that works out. And, shows that we've seen sold out are like Tech Nine and Stained and Kid Rock and stuff. So I think it's a good perspective operating differently. But again, it's not like there's not great things going on. I mean, like Elk Fest, Baby Bars and a lot of things, Terrain that's 6th year.
Yeah.
I think the strange part about it from my eye is that once you get to a certain level of seriousness or take things professionally enough that you almost have to leave. Like, you go to Seattle or Portland. You've mentioned on Collect sessions with Silver Torches and Eric, like the Globes and Pegasus Dreams and the Perennials. My own band, we dealt with that same issue. And think about that angle, though, perhaps it's a possibility that eventually, and maybe with the Bartlett, is you create a connection, like a reverse connection, where Portland, Seattle musicians start to see the benefit of Spokane as opposed to it being that historically, I don't know, the spot on the map you skip.
Yeah, I mean, we've even been on, Caleb has been touring the past year with Pickwick a bit. And, they're like doing really well right now and finding a lot of success, but it's still really hard for a band that size, and they have families, and we keep getting on them about moving here because how great of a home base is Spokane for bands. Like, it's not that far from Seattle and Portland, and they don't even play in Seattle hardly ever. So, like, cheaper rent, cheaper to live here. I think that...
I was saying, like, I think I paid $170 in rent when I was, dudes in a house sort of thing. But then now, moving to a market where it's, like, in the Bay Area, like, bigger. And, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of options. But that balance between... of course, we all, everyone thinks about that. I think it's from Spokane. There's pros and cons, But for Pickwick,
Yeah,
I keep going. Sorry, I just thought I had to iterate that. I agree with you.
yeah, no, and I think that I'm not opposed to Spokane staying that small town where like people like Eric Walters develop as a musician, start a band, and then move off to Seattle and get signed. You know, I think that those cities have their place too, and it's a great place to kind of spread your wings and have a really supportive community cheering you on as you develop your skills. And you know, I think that our goal more is to maybe keep people here a little bit longer, and then you know they go off to do other things. But we really are excited about even just being a part of developing young musicians that are just starting out, because I find that to be a pretty exciting part of the process.
Yeah, completely. I agree with you 100%. One thing I've noticed both like in my high school years and then kind of the 2 years after college, where I really went for it and in Spokane with music. It seems that, say, opposed to a Boise, Idaho, which is similar economically sized demographics, that the Spokane scene kind of has a scarcity mentality as a Boise abundancy thing, and that maybe there's just a few venues, a few writers at the Inlander. There's only so many dollars that can be paid towards covers each week. That bands that quote unquote make it or get in, they kind of close the doors and want to hold on to that, perhaps fear of losing it, which I mean is legitimate too. And I'm communicating this from a lot of Spokane musicians I've talked to in the past too. You know, last few years, this year, literally this weekend and today when I was mentioning that I was going to talk to you about that. But do you think that's true?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I guess I've seen that a little bit. I don't follow Boise too closely, but Spokane definitely has that. I mean,
yeah,
people are
parallel,
incredibly conservative and like to save money here, or I mean, there are also people like my age. You know, they get into buying a house, and I think people spread themselves pretty thin because you can't afford to do a lot here, and then you have your money's kind of tied up monthly, so you have less to kind of like play around with and go out to events.
Yeah, definitely.
Where in big cities, I mean, people don't have houses, and they like to go out and have more money exactly for that. Where I think Spokane and Tri-Cities specifically are like very much homebody cultures. People love to stay in and watch TV, and you know, they go out to eat, but a lot of people in this area really like to just be home.
For sure.
So.
Enough being nicer, though. So the community aspect, one thing that you address, and I was so keen on getting involved and helping out however I could, was because I do think there's a lot of like awesome people doing things very quietly at Spokane, like you said, being at home and doing this in their basement. And I know some of them kind of encountered that strange barrier I just mentioned, but they still want to get in there. And it seems like development of the community is a large factor from straight from the IndieGoGo campaign, everything you've done so far, right?
Yeah.
And like the collect sections and secret shows, that makes me very helpful because obviously it's a deeper effort than just, hey, here's a show and it's $9, we'll have beer, you know?
Sure. Yeah. No, it's like all encompassing for us. We're like fully invested in more ways than just the Bartlett, and I think, yeah, we're excited to be able to kind of like have that missing piece, because having a space that we can put on shows the way we feel like they should be put on has kind of been what we felt like is the missing piece in Spokane. When there's great bands, not a ton, but there's some like really fantastic bands. We have decent local press. You know, we have community radio. We have like some stuff, but we felt like that was really what was missing. But we still want to be able to do those other things, and yeah, it'll be cool to see how everything kind of fuses together.
And it's an ambitious goal of like fostering community or whatever, because as much as you can do, you can only do so much. And it seems like you do open mics, you do collect session, like Marshall McLean's release show, helping out. It seems like, I don't know, I don't like to use genres or classifications, but if you shoot for a certain type of music, like Pickwick and Radiation City have toured together a ton of times. Pickwick likes Sally Ford, and they've gotten together before. If you narrow in on that niche, that market, that sector of music for Spokane, develop it, are you going to focus on that, or do you have broader intentions of, say, like, whatever, there's some psychedelic garage band from the Gonzaga area that may be a little brash around the edges, but would you try to bring that in, or are you, how does it, like that balance between focusing on a niche that you want to...
Yeah, I'm going to do my best to speak for Caleb because this is kind of more his department, but his goal more is to book buzz bands. So bands that are getting press, getting written up, getting like on national blogs, kind of more bands that are in that caliber, so less super underground, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a
so
tricky
that's
balance
kind of like,
too, because like you said, trying to keep the doors open and like actually pay for stuff and have bands that can generate revenue, but then balancing those two things. And I think any venue in Spokane, inherently, if you're the top venue, you have to sort of inherit that, whether you want to or not, that people are going to look like you should have an open mic and you should be booking local bands. But I don't know, I think it's a difficult balance, because if you want to break that boundary and shatter that glass ceiling in Spokane, it's a
Yeah, and we would obviously, for me too, branding is a huge thing, and that even goes down to the kind of bands you're booking, and keeping some consistency so that people, because we do want to kind of become a venue where, the average person might not know exactly who's playing, but they know that there's a show and they can trust that it's going to be something they're into. That's like what we want our clientele to be, people that are going to be into all, at least the majority of the shows we're booking. So to try to keep it somewhat consistent is pretty important to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, within genres, we want to be somewhat diverse. I'm more into folk and country music and bluegrass. I follow those scenes a little bit more than Caleb does. So, and singer-songwriters. So I'd really like to bring more of that back to Spokane, because the folk scene hasn't been super vibrant in the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and he's more into rock, so we kind of have two different angles, and hopefully that will help make it a little bit more diverse than just, the typical indie band.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we'll get the calendar up online, and seriously, congratulations. Bartlett, Spokane,
Thanks so much.
Washington.
When are you going to come visit?
I know. I was just thinking, I was going to come home for Thanksgiving and then Christmas with job. I'm like, I don't know. My family's already given me enough guff about that. But the next time I'm in Spokane, I will be at the Bartlett. I can guarantee that.
Perfect.
But, yeah. Again, the Bartlett in Spokane, Washington, it's been Karli Ingersoll. Thank you for talking. I appreciate you elaborating on the subjects in depth.
Yeah, thanks so much for talking with me about it. It's always fun to get to share the vision.
For sure. Well, have a good night, Karli. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye, Nick.